My mother was always very familiar with her neighborhood, but one day she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. And she didn't know whether she should go forward or turn, and she wasn't even really sure where she was at. It was very unsettling for her.
I felt so much better after my son told me, "Mom, I don't want you to worry or be afraid. I'll be there for you, and we'll figure it out."
If you love them enough to crawl into a play place to get them to come down, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Welcome to this month's Salute to Service, and today with me I have Mr. Bob Lewis. Bob, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
My pleasure.
Bob, where did you grow up at? Where are you from?
Originally, I was born in West Virginia.
Okay.
Huntington, West Virginia. We moved here when I was about 6 years old, moved to Cleveland. And we lived in Cleveland up until I went into service, and that was in '71. Spent all my time in the service for 6 years, and then came back to Brunswick. I moved back to Cleveland for a short time, and then to Brunswick because it seemed like the perfect town for raising kids, and that's the way it's turned out to be.
So you were married when you went into the service or after?
Yeah, I was 24 when I went into service after serving a 5.5-year apprenticeship program. So I was the old man.
Okay.
But and that was nothing wrong with that because it served me well. But yeah, we were already married, getting ready to buy a house.
So let's talk a little bit about when you went into the service. So what year?
71.
71. Drafted, enlisted?
Well, I was number 23 in the first lottery, so I knew I was going to be drafted.
Okay.
We were already over 100.
It's a short number.
Yeah, very short number. My brother was 361. But knowing that was the case, we planned towards that. And so when my draft notice actually came in the mail, I headed for 105th and Euclid, and we signed up. I talked to all the recruiters, and the Navy was the only one that could offer me anything. Because at the time, the draft was kind of new, and everybody was just getting used to it.
Right, yeah.
And in our neighborhood, we'd already lost 7 guys in my neighborhood to Vietnam. And one good buddy of mine from school, he was in Vietnam one day. So those were the kind of issues we were dealing with. But when it came to joining, I had no hesitation to join the Navy because I knew all kinds of people that were already there, had served, and a couple of my uncles were. So it seemed like the best deal.
So you like being on a ship and everything?
I hated being on the ship when I first got there. I didn't know I was seasick.
Yeah.
I was chronic seasick. And the ship would weigh anchor and I'd get seasick. And it took me probably months to get used to it. And so I was doing a bottle of aspirin every week and a half.
So when you enlisted those, so did you know what you were going to do, or did you not get that until, where'd you go, Great Lakes, I assume?
I went to Great Lakes, yeah.
Okay.
And we got there on the day that it hit 20 below zero. So I said, what have I gotten myself into? But boot camp was a thrill. I mean, I actually had a good time all the times I was, in all the places I was at in the Navy. But joining in '71 meant that there was a possibility of Vietnam. I did not know, they call it dream sheeting, when you sign up for 5 things that you have your choices of. And electronic warfare was not even on the list. It was a brand new rating. So I didn't know that. But I had been repairing radios and TVs, so I wanted electronics.
Right.
And they offered it to me, and I got the electronics, but I didn't even have an insignia until I got to Vietnam because it was brand new.
Oh, okay.
We were one of the first classes to graduate out. But the upside to that is that it gave me what I wanted. I got to work on a lot of really exotic equipment, a great bunch of people. So those were the kind of issues that made it easier to tolerate.
So your first assignment, was it on a ship going over to Vietnam, or?
Yes, I went to California. I went to San Diego for one school, and we moved up. My wife was with me. We sold everything back here, went there, bought a car, went up to Frisco, and I went to Treasure Island.
Okay.
Had my schools at Treasure Island. So that was for about a little over a year of schooling. And from there we were transferred. We got our finally walking orders, and I was transferred back to the East Coast, which was great because I thought, okay, I can avoid Vietnam, I thought. being a family man. Well, that came as a surprise because it was the only ship on the piers that was sent to Vietnam. And because we were specially equipped with a lot of detection equipment, defensive equipment.
What kind of ship was it?
Oh, a destroyer, guided missile destroyer.
Okay.
I served three different ships, 2 destroyers, number 4, number 17, and a fast frigate, which was a formal destroyer escort.
So when you shipped out and went over to Vietnam, what was your mission over there?
We were going to be mainly ground support, so we knew we were going to be close to the beach, and we also operated with the two different carriers at 2 different times. So our job mainly was plane guard for the carriers when we were with them, and then we would go into the beach. We fired 11,000 shells in 6 months.
Wow.
3 different tours, 3 different assignments, and we were close to the DMZ many times. And then one time they changed the whole number of the ship, changed its designation, changed its call sign, and sent us up to Haiphong. And so we were sitting outside Haiphong Harbor, right in the midst of all of the weaponry.
Where's that at?
North Vietnam.
North Vietnam, okay.
And so we went up there and did several exercises to kind of test our new equipment things, and headed back down to the DMZ. So we were up and down the coast, basically giving ground support.
Ever inside Vietnam? You ever get off the ship?
No, I never got off the ship.
Never went in.
And that's okay.
That's a good thing, yeah. So you spent 6 months over there. Any incidents or anything like that stand out in your mind that Well,
several. We got my job on board ship was to operate the equipment of detecting our threats, whether it be surface threats, air threats, long distance threats. So I was operating the equipment.
Like a radar type equipment?
Yes, radar detection.
Yeah. Okay.
So we could pick up their fire control radars for missiles. We could pick up their gun control missiles, gun controls for the guns. We could pick up aircraft. And so we were always watching the gear. And when we picked something up, we had to define what it was, consider the threat, report that to the bridge. The captain and the weapons officer would be ready for weapons on the rail or guns to defend the ship when need be. So I would be the first line of defense, basically, on that ship. There were 6 of us that did the operations. But the scariest memory was when we were on a Russian MiG-21 came down over the hill and strafed us. Fortunately, it didn't have any weapons left. Otherwise, we would have probably gotten shot at.
Right.
That was scary. And another time we went dead in the water in a minefield, which we didn't know was even there. So we had to get rescued out of that. But those kind of incidents were rare. We didn't usually have anything like that happen.
So pretty good life on the ship?
I loved it. I mean, I really enjoyed the travel. Once I got past the seasickness, it was okay. But I enjoyed the travel. I got this in the time I was in service. I was in Vietnam and East Coast and West Coast both, and the Caribbean, 26 countries, 4 oceans.
Wow.
3 different ships, 3 stellar crews. I mean, I couldn't have had a better time.
Wow. So you said you spent 6 months over in Vietnam, in that area, right? So when you left out of there, where'd you come back to? Back to Treasure Island, or
we
back to the East Coast?
We went back to the East Coast through the Panama Canal, which was a kick in itself. And then we went in the yard period, and then I got transferred to another ship, the USS Canole, which was a fast frigate, and it was headed for the Caribbean for sea trials, and then from there it was going to the Med. So I literally got overnight orders. I'd just gotten back from Vietnam, and we were in a yard period, so I thought it was going to be relaxing for a while.
Right.
But the equipment that I was specialized in was jamming equipment. It was to pick up a signal, define what the signal was, and then make the weapon think we were someplace else.
Right.
So that was my specialty, and somebody had gone a little wacko on one of the other ships on the Canole, broken things, and now they needed to be repaired on their way to the Med. So I got my orders on Monday, and I was on Thursday's departure. So that was a little tough.
So going to the Med probably, I mean, obviously it's a little bit better than going to Vietnam, but it's a whole different threat over there because the Soviet bloc and all that going on. So. So once you got over there, aside from beach duty and drinking umbrella drinks and all that good stuff in the Med, what was your daily duties like? What were you doing? Well,
in the Med, because it was a threat environment at the time, and we were on usually port and starboard watches, so it was 12 hours on, 12 hours off, and you find time to exercise and do those kind of things. Right. And I was also a shipboard photographer, so that was one of my tertiary responsibilities, so that was fun. But then we got assigned to go sit off the coast of Tunisia with the Russians. There were 7 Russian ships sitting there, and we were going to be right in the middle of all that, and that was a little scary,
right?
Because they could have blown us out of the water anytime they wanted to. But the whole job, our job, was to detect everything that they had electronically, whether it be sonar, radar, to detect all that stuff, catalog it, and identify that ship no matter where it went, because of the pitch of the screws, the radar that they used, the type of radar.
Kind of like an ID for the ship.
Exactly.
By the noises.
Identify, and we did that. And the main job of a fast frigate was for submarine detection. It carried a helicopter crew, which I was involved with that. I became the radio talker.
So you were on a frigate over in the Med, not a.
Well,
not
the first time, yeah.
Okay, all right.
And so we kept a Russian a Soviet Juliet class submarine underwater longer than it should have been, because we were following them every place they went. So we were part of that group, and I was a radio talker, communicating with helicopters and that sort of thing. One fellow told me one time, says, if you're going to volunteer for anything, because NAVY usually stands for Never Again Volunteer Yourself.
Right.
Well, he said, that's not true. He said, volunteer for the things that are going to do you the most good and have the most fun.
Right.
And I did. And so I was involved in some pretty nice things. But all of that surrounded by a crew. The 3 crews I worked with on board those ships was just the best. I mean, I had no bad experiences with crews.
So the first ship was
the Lawrence.
And that was in Vietnam.
Yep.
Second ship?
That was the USS Knoll. That was East Coast, Caribbean, and Med.
And then the third ship?
The third ship was the USS Cunningham, DDG-17,
okay,
which was in the same series as the Lawrence.
Another destroyer. And
its job was to chase down Russians.
Where'd you go on that ship?
We went to Italy. We went to.
So you were back on the East Coast, not back to Vietnam or anything?
No, not back to Vietnam. Okay. Well, that was, we were attached to become a part of a different group over there. Once we came back through the Panama Canal, we automatically went back to the East Coast group, which meant that we were.
So any shore time when you were over in
the we went to
Caribbean?
Yeah, we went to a lot of nice places. Went to Rome, went to Sardinia, went to Tunisia, went to Spain. We were scheduled to go to Alexandria, Egypt, and Haifa. Alexandria and Haifa, Israel, and those got canceled out because a brand new Soviet aircraft helicopter carrier was coming out of the straits, so we were chasing them down.
Okay.
And that was a big attaboy for me because I got pictures of all that stuff being.
So when you had some shore duty or anything, how were you received as an American over there?
Every place was great, except the only place we really got turned away from was. Well, it wasn't. We weren't really turned away from them, but 2 of the islands, plus Cyprus, we had a rescue mission with Cyprus, but mostly Majorca, Malaga, places like that,
right, off
the Spanish coast, off the southern coast of France, but I had a great time in France. We were right on the French Riviera.
Oh wow!
I got hooked up I was always picked for shore patrol, and I asked about that one time. Why is it always me? And they says, you're tall and you're ugly. Okay, that serves me well. But because of the shore patrol duty, I got a chance to work with the French gendarmes,
right,
the Italians in Naples and Rome.
So you were basically out there making sure everybody else didn't get in trouble.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in the process, not getting in trouble ourselves.
Right. Right. Wow, that's good. So so after, obviously your wife's back in Norfolk most of this time. I mean, so any kids while you were in the service?
Yeah, my son was born 4.5 months after he was I saw him 4.5 months after he was born from Vietnam cruise. But we got pictures and videos. My uncles and my relatives took pictures and sent them back, and it was kind of heartwarming to see these big burly sailors,
right,
hairy-chested sailors with tears running down their cheeks, watching movies.
I mean, communication today and communication in the Vietnam era, and even going back farther, but. So what was it like, being away from your family for 6 months, and how did you communicate and stay in touch and things like that?
Yeah, that was the hardest part, because we had, 2 of my kids were born while I was at sea, which is one of the reasons why I didn't re-enlist. But being away from them, I bought tape recorders, so my wife and I would send tape recorders, tapes back and forth. And for my son, who wasn't old enough to understand it yet, I was doing cartoon pages, because art was my sideline.
Oh, okay.
I did cartoon pages and sent him little cartoons and things like that, and messages, and I drew in pictures, so we keep it in touch that way, which we still have. There are volumes of them. But my wife was really good about the whole thing. It was scary sometimes because we got newspaper articles that had us in terrible conditions,
right,
but she was able to sift through all that stuff and make good sense of it. But she was a good Navy wife.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's tougher on the family sometimes than it is on the sailor, soldier, or mariner. You know, I mean, we kind of do what we're supposed to do, but the family's kind of left out in the cold there sometimes.
Yeah, and the Navy used to have a quote that says, if the Navy wanted you to have a wife and kids, they'd have put them in your sea bag.
Yeah, they would have issued you one, I guess. Yeah.
That's pretty much the way they think about it too.
So after all the tours and everything, you're coming back to Norfolk. What was your decision on whether to get out or whether to stay there?
Well, I talked to the recruiter. I'm not a recruiter, but I talked to our onboard. We called him the recruiter.
Right.
He was a lieutenant. And his job was his job was to counsel us, and so I had a really good record. And he said, "Well, we need guys like you because when I left the Navy, we were only 40% manned in my rate."
Right. Well, it's a new job, probably.
Brand new job, and it was that meant that no matter where I went, and being one of the destroyermen, the aircraft carriers, you couldn't get on that because that was locked up. Those guys were sewn in. For us, it was going to be smaller ships, and the smaller ships spend more time at sea. In and out. So I talked to them, and the only thing they could offer me was on a 4-year hitch was 3 years at shore, 3 years at sea, and 1 ashore. And even that 1 ashore wasn't necessarily guaranteed because it was the needs of the Navy first.
Right.
So they couldn't talk me into it. They offered me all kinds of things, and they couldn't talk me into it.
So when you get out, obviously job, family, kids. What's going through a young guy's? Well,
I came back. I wanted to stay in electronics. But I had served a 5.5-year apprenticeship in pattern making, which was an automotive trade, which was a skilled trade, and I loved that too. So I went back to pattern making for about 6 months, and then I found a job in electronics. I stayed there.
And this is back here in Brunswick.
Back here, back in Cleveland at the time.
Okay, Cleveland.
Then in Brunswick, we finally got a job at Ford, and Ford treated me really good. Well, I treated them good too, but I was with them 35 years, and I worked my way up through the ranks there and got into the higher end electronics. So I stayed with that for all that time. And it really paid well because good company to work for. I retired on a good income. So that was the softness of it.
Right.
But Brunswick was the place we found we wanted to stay. Our house was going to be our starter house, and now it's not. It's the house.
It's the house.
But we watched it grow, and the kids loved it here, and the kids had good times in school. Right. So yeah, it felt like home.
So what's it been like being a veteran in Brunswick from 30 years ago through today? I mean, what do you see any differences or?
I do. One of the things is a lot of the Vietnam vets, and we've heard the stories for years. One of the sad things about the Vietnam vets is that service really wasn't recognized for a long time.
For a long time, yeah.
And I actually have a picture from San Diego of a group of people, and they were holding a baby, a doll baby, upside down, and with a sign across it called "Baby Killers."
Right.
And that stuck in my head for years. I didn't talk about it for a long time, and I really wasn't allowed to talk about anything for 10 years because of what I was involved in. But when I keep in touch with those guys, I still know guys with PTSD, and I'm a member of that group. I don't have it as far as I know, but I know people that have it, and that's very frightening. And now with the new guys coming back from overseas and their issues, it's become more of a medical problem than even COVID,
right.
I think. But keeping in touch with those guys and being able to talk and share and open up to people who can understand it and appreciate it, that's really a big thrill.
So did you see, because I talked to a lot of Vietnam vets. I got a lot of friends who are Vietnam vets, and it always seems like, the worst part was coming back to places like Oakland, San Diego. So, California was obviously a different area in 1970s and 60s. But did you see any of that when you came back to Brunswick?
No, not a bit. Not a bit. Matter of fact, I was invited several times when we first moved here. I was invited to go to a couple of the elementary schools just to talk about being in the service, and I really enjoyed that. But we got involved in our church. We've been in the church for 44 years. And we've been in our house for almost 45. So I didn't think of it. This was home. I didn't want to be anyplace else because we lived in Cleveland. I grew up in Cleveland. And so that was home for a long time. But we were looking for community. We were looking for people that, we got some of the same friends we've had for most of our lives here. And we still see them. We go on vacations with them when it's not COVID. And we take care of each other. We look out for each other. And the one friend of mine just passed away, and we bid him a fond farewell yesterday. He was typical of one of those kind of guys. He always found the good in people. I try to do the same thing.
So do you belong to any of the local veterans organizations?
American Legion.
Here in Brunswick?
In Brunswick, yeah.
How long have you been a member there?
Oh, 10 10 or 12 years
so
now.
quite a while. So,
yeah.
So again, going back, I mean, what's the differences of being a veteran in Brunswick in, let's say, 1985 and being a veteran in Brunswick in 2021?
We've watched the communication grow for things like this, first of all, but we watched the communication grow between individuals. We have we put a slideshow together, myself and my good friend Chuck Nicoletti. We put a slideshow together for our church to honor the people that were both lost,
right,
and lived their lives out and then were lost to war injuries and things like that, but also the people who are still serving. We put that slideshow up on Veterans Day and Memorial Day so we can put faces on these people. A lot of times it's statistics we hear so much about. We wanted to see the faces.
Right.
And we were really surprised to see how many people were involved in so many things that you hear about but don't talk about anymore.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to be dealing with the negative issues of it. But most people have a good memory of their time in service because of the people they worked with, the jobs that they did, and sometimes it's some of the things we avoid talking about because it's still looked on as being intrusive to another country. We were there. Our justification for being there, operating off the coast, was we're protecting our guys on the beach,
right,
who were trying to protect each other.
Right.
So that became the issue. I didn't know anybody that wanted to be in Vietnam on board the ship I was on. Nobody wanted to be there because they all had families back home.
Yeah.
But we supported one another, sit around talking trivia and silly things, telling stories about the good old days and growing up in Pittsburgh and Chicago.
It's like 8 hours of boredom for 2 minutes of action. That's kind of
exactly.
what. Yeah,
you
exactly,
said it.
Yeah.
We sat around and did a lot
yeah.
of waiting, but the worst part about it was when you don't think about, at least we didn't think about it when we were heading into the beach to start shooting and getting shot back. We didn't think about that. We were thinking about the job we had to do, but on our way back out,
mission-oriented.
Mission-oriented. Yeah. On our way back out, doing zigzag patterns to avoid, everybody was getting shakes, because we came that close to that situation.
So, in closing, so any last words that you'd offer, like younger viewers out there, or something you want to tell somebody about your service that you feel as though might make a decision for a younger person that's thinking about going into the service or not thinking about going into the service?
Yeah, I've actually dealt with that quite a few times now, and my suggestion was if they wanted to see the world, the Navy is a great way to do it. It took me to places I would never be able to go any other way. I saw things there, and I was able to take my wife in some of those places, but we saw things, went to places that proved to us that America is still the best place to be. And when the Navy, it doesn't matter which service, if you're going when you're 18, 19 years old, it teaches you just how capable you can be and how much you can learn and how dependable you can become.
Well, it teaches you a lot about people, too.
Absolutely.
It throws you in the military is still the ultimate melting pot.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's people from all walks of life,
That's part of the fun.
Yeah.
Is meeting people. I remember talking to an Osage Indian, and he hardly ever said a word. And for some reason, we hit it off. And we stood watches together at Schools Command, and I ran into him again in Norfolk, 3 years later, and he had 2 new stripes, and I was real proud of that. I made
right.
E6 in 5 years and 12 days, which was unheard of back in those days because I was doing that job already. But I ran into people that finally would open up to somebody they trusted, and I felt like that was one of those kind of people.
Anything that the Legion's got going on here in Brunswick that you guys are participating in?
When we follow it, but the meetings don't coincide with time I've got free. So we keep in touch and support everything that they do.
Okay. Yeah, I know they're really active.
They really are.
Between them and the VFW as far as the schools. And the Brunswick schools do a phenomenal job as far as their Veterans Day programs and stuff go.
Yep.
So I ask everybody that comes on the show, my final question, if you had it to do all over again, would you do it?
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't hesitate.
All right. Bob, I appreciate you coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
We'll see you next month on Salute to Service. Thank you.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. Let 211 be your guiding light for help with food, healthcare, and other resources.
211, how can I help you?
Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211, get connected, get help.